According to a 2019 report released by the Center for Civil Society Studies from Johns Hopkins University, it revealed nonprofits account for roughly 1 in 10 jobs in the United States. In the private workforce, with total employees numbering approximately 12.3 million as of 2016. So the question becomes, how do we optimize the success of this segment of our population's workforce? Britt Trama knows something about this. She's a nonprofit consultant and leadership coach focused on helping nonprofits optimize their team for greater and more impact. She joined me this week to discuss how nonprofits can boost their productivity, do the most good for the maximum number of people, while also growing and, personally, developing. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Welcome into the show, Britt, and I'm excited to dive into nonprofits with you this afternoon. Great to be with you, and thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
So, Britt, I know that you've dedicated the last 5 years of your life to helping nonprofits accelerate their growth. So tell me about how you think nonprofits can accelerate growth to be sustainable.
Yeah, so I think something that's very important and it gets frequently overlooked is the importance of investing in your team, investing in their growth and their development, investing in their careers, paying them a fair and equitable wage, and then making sure you have the right people in the right seats. I recently saw a stat from nonprofit HR that said 45% of nonprofit employees plan to leave their jobs here in the next 5 years. And so there is a cost to that. There's a financial cost to that. It costs an organization about 1.5 times a person's salary when they leave. So that's a turnover cost. And then there's also a human cost. There's another stat that I read that about 25% of those nonprofit employees who plan to leave their careers, they plan to leave the nonprofit space entirely. So we're losing really good people, we're losing talent, and when they leave, they take that institutional knowledge with them. So when that happens, an organization has to start over from scratch.
Yeah, and absolutely. You think, which makes executive directors' leadership all that more important. And I know that you believe it starts with the daily behaviors, habits, and routines of executive leadership of nonprofit organizations. So I'm wondering if you can tell me all about it.
Yeah, so it starts with the leadership team. It starts with the executive director. And so it's like the ripple effect of leadership. So if you imagine a pond and you throw a pebble into that pond, that pebble creates a ripple in there. And so if the executive director is at the center of that ripple, that means that the executive director's habits, behaviors, routines, their actions, how they show up as a leader, the words that they say to their team, that has a direct impact on their staff and their board. So if an executive director wants to have a team that is accountable, committed to the work, invested in the organization, then it really starts with their personal growth and their leadership growth and development. And then once you create an environment where your team can thrive, then it ripples out to the broader community. So then you're able to have more impact.
Yeah, I know that you believe that leadership growth and development can have a positive impact on the lives of teams and stakeholders and the communities they serve. So I'm wondering if you could dive just a little bit deeper into that section of our conversation this afternoon.
Yeah, so when leaders focus on their own personal growth and development, it has a direct positive impact into the community. So it makes the organization runs more smoothly and effectively, because if you're a better leader, then you're able to identify the right talent to bring into your organization. You're able to train them up so that they're able to perform their jobs the best of their capabilities. You're providing opportunities for them to stay within the organization. So there's more return on investment of those employees. And then they're able to bring their whole selves to work. And when you have happy people inside your organization, then that directly impacts the community, because they're able to serve the community better, because they can bring their whole selves to work. They're not tired, they're not burnt out, they're not stressed out, and they're just able to do a better job.
And Brett, I know for you, it's sort of a career pivot because you used to work with Fortune 500 companies, but you've made the decision to switch to work for a nonprofit organizations as a consultant. So I'm wondering what went into that shift for you personally?
Yeah, so I've always had an interest and a love of community service and nonprofit organizations. So when I was in college, I started a new chapter of an organization called Gamma Sigma Sigma Service Sorority. And being the president of that organization, it was very similar to being an executive director inside of a nonprofit. So I had to raise funds, I had to recruit new members, I had to develop them. We had to do community service, all the things that an executive director would do. And so that's really where I got my skills, some of my skills and my passion for service and helping the community. And then after I graduated college, I got a job in corporate working in the IT space. I quickly realized that corporate was not for me, because I'm the type of person who likes to have freedom and flexibility. And sometimes you don't really get that in the corporate space. So I took my skills and the things I learned about leadership, processes, efficiency, effectiveness that I learned in corporate, and decided to bring that into the nonprofit space, because I felt like if I could help nonprofits become more efficient and effective, then that would allow them to have more impact in their communities.
Yeah, having creative freedom is very important for creative types, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And I'm sure you feel the same way too, Kevin.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it opens more doors of inclusion if you're a creative, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And inclusion is so important. And I'm so glad that that topic is something that is being talked about a lot more now.
Yeah, I always tell people that inclusion is the gateway to independence, right? For
Yes, it
everybody.
is. Yes, it is.
So I know, Britt, you also think if executive directors do a better job of training their staffs, they can become less reliant on management. I'm wondering if you could tell me all about it.
Yeah, so what I tend to see, and this is not necessarily just something that happens in nonprofit, it's something I see happening amongst a lot of leaders, but what you want to do is build other leaders around you. So what that looks like is if an employee is coming to you and asking questions, that is an indicator of efficacy. So efficacy is confidence, a belief that I can do this skill or I can do this task. So when they're coming and asking questions, one thing you can do is ask them what they think the solution is, or ask them to give you a couple options for what they think the solution is. And if you do that, then that trains them to begin to think more strategically and to begin to think for themselves. And then it just empowers them more. And then I think it's also important to, sometimes people make mistakes, and that's okay. So as a leader, you have to be willing to let go of some of that control, let people learn from their mistakes, and that's going to build their self-confidence too.
Trama says that executive directors of nonprofits should look out for these indicators to determine whether or not they're good leaders?
So I think one way to know is to keep track of your KPIs, key performance indicators, or your metrics. So if you have high turnover, then that could be a symptom of something else. Or if you have, if you're able to retain your team, then that could be an indicator that you're doing something right. And so you want to identify what are the things that we're doing that is working, and how can we do more of those things. And I think for the community, some things I've seen nonprofits do is like they do surveys and focus groups. So they invite the community to come into the process, share their thoughts, share their feedback, share their stories. And then through that, through listening to other people, then you can hear what's working, what's not working, and you can adapt from there.
Yeah, absolutely, Britt. And I'm also wanting to ask you about nonprofit diversification, and how do you think that nonprofits can better evolve to fit or suit the changing needs of today's society?
Yeah, so I think one thing is, so what we're seeing now as a result of COVID is the desire for more people to have flexibility in how they work. So it could be working from home more, or hybrid working arrangements. So I think going into the future, it's a good idea for nonprofit leaders to be thinking more strategically about how they want to structure their team so that they can offer more freedom and flexibility for their workers. I think if you can set that up correctly, it goes a long way towards helping to retain some of your team.
And Britt, yeah, as you know, because of the pandemic, nonprofits have been called upon more than ever to fit the needs of individuals that they may not usually serve because of the pandemic. So, can you talk to me about the impact the pandemic has had on the health and vitality of nonprofits?
Yeah, so the pandemic, like you said, nonprofits are having to serve a lot more folks now. And so the nonprofit industry historically has had high turnover and lots of employee and team burnout. And so with the pandemic, we're seeing that become even more prevalent, like the staff being burnt out, leaders being burnt out and stressed out. And that's who I like to work with the most, executive directors who feel like they're overwhelmed, they're wearing multiple hats, having to do a lot of things. I like to help them see how they can create more time in their calendar to think more strategically, and also spend time with their family or do the things that they enjoy doing so that they can have a more enjoyable experience in their work.
And for you, Britt, I'm curious to know what is the best part of your job, and what sort of a legacy do you want to leave in the space of nonprofits and your life?
So the best part of my job is getting to work with a variety of different nonprofit organizations, getting to see behind the scenes of the things that they do and how they impact the community, and getting to work very closely with the executive director one-on-one, and just helping them enjoy the experience of working inside of a nonprofit, helping them find ways. I was one client I recently coached. I coached him to go to bed earlier, and as a result, he's getting more sleep. He's more energized at work. He's able to bring his best self to work. And so his team has noticed a difference in how he is showing up and how he is supporting them. So things like that. I like to see how the work that I do is impacting people on the individual level, and then it ripples out to impact people on a broader level.
Yeah, absolutely. You gotta take care of yourself so that you can take care of the issues and things around you, right?
Yes, it's like when you fly on an airplane and they give you the safety instructions and they say you have to put your own oxygen mask on first before you put on someone else's oxygen mask. same concept. You have to take care of yourself first so that you can be your best self, and then you're able to help and serve other people just even more.
Absolutely. And Britt, tell me, if people want to get connected with you and get exposed to the great work that you do, what's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn. So check out my LinkedIn page. I have a website. It is britttrama.com. So BRITTTRAMA.com. Or you can email me at britt@britttrama.com.
Fantastic, Britt. I really enjoyed our conversation. I'm better for having this conversation with you. I want to thank you for the privilege of your time and your insights. Most appreciated, and I want to thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me as a guest, Kevin. I really enjoyed it. It's my first podcast, so I'm honored that I got to be on your show, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend and happy Friday.
It's the best day of the week. Happy Friday, and thanks again for the time, okay?
Take care. Bye, Kevin.